To find an inverse function, these 4 steps are applied to any function that happens to be one-to-one. So in the case of a function that's one-to-one, remember that means it passes the horizontal line test, we can find its inverse. So for this first example, change f of x to y. I already did that. Step 2, swap all x's and y's. But this goes for any function, so I can look over here at example 2, do the same thing. And come over here to example 3, do the same thing. The tricky part is once you've done the swap step, step 3, solve for the new y, you've got to go back through all the algebra that you've learned to figure out how to solve for y. So for this one, I want to get the y term by itself, so the plus 3 has to move. And then divide both sides by 4, because it was hooked by multiplication. So we unhook with division. And I get y equals x minus 3 divided by 4. For this one, I want to solve for y. So again, subtract 3. But now the y is up in an exponent. So to undo an exponent, you use logarithms. So I start out with log. Base of the logarithm is the base of the exponent. And inside here is going to go x minus 3 equals the power y. For this one, you're given a logarithm, so the opposite of a logarithm is an exponent. You can't move anything away from it, so we start out with the base, which is 4. And again, if they're together in a log, they're not together in the exponent, so it's 4 to the x equals y plus 3. You still need to solve for y in this one, so again, undo addition with subtraction. And this becomes 4 to the x minus 3 equals y. Usually a last step then is to rename all the y's back to whatever the inverse was. So if this started out as f of x, then we found f inverse of x. If it had started out as t of x, then we found t inverse. And then if it had started out as h of x, then we would call this h inverse of x. All right, so the key is to, I think, do step 3, solve for the new y, and that's where you got to go back and do what undoes what's already been done. And that can be a little tricky. Let's try one more. If I'm given p of x equals the cube root of x plus 7, and I want to find p inverse, change p of x to y, swap it out, and then solve for y. So subtract 7. Okay, but we still need to figure out how to get rid of the root, and the opposite of roots are powers. So I raise both sides to the 3rd power. I have x minus 7 cubed. We're going to leave it like this. I'm not going to write out x minus 7 3 times and then FOIL. But your final step is rewrite it in formal notation. P inverse of x equals x minus 7 raised to the 3rd.